Yeah, I'm glad this isn't one of the predictor ones because I think a lot of points will be dropped here, just purely from how open it is.
Welcome everyone, and today we are discussing day 4 of the Aquatics GB Swimming Championships, and I'm really pleased to be joined by Charlie Harris, the lead presenter of the Aqua Pod.
Lloyd, thanks for having me on.
Brilliant to have you here, Charlie. And yeah, just before we kick off into Friday's schedule, as we've been doing on every other day, just want to give you a chance to give it a bit of a background on the Aqua Pod, like how long has it been running, and what's the sort of community and topics that you discuss.
Thanks, Lloyd. So, yeah, I'm Charlie, the host of the Aqua Pod, which is Scottish Women's podcast. We've been going for about a year now. So the first episode was actually a preview to last year's Aquatics GB Champs. So quite nice to kind of look back on a year, which I think has been pretty successful. Yeah, we're at nearly 20 episodes, so it's been pretty good. I think originally our aim was to do at least one a month, so we've definitely achieved that. And yeah, it's a really kind of broad scope of what we're aiming to do. As I mentioned, the first episode was a performance-focused one, looking at the Aquatics GB Championships, and again, we'll have one for this year. But actually, what we want to do is have a little bit more of a look at some of the other sports under the umbrella of Scottish Swimming. So we've had a Masters podcast, we've had a diving podcast, and then looking to kind of do maybe an open water one and water polo, artistic things like that as well. But also just looking at kind of volunteering stories, some of the stories out of Learn to Swim, school swimming, and yeah, just really some of the stories throughout the Scottish aquatic community that maybe aren't covered or aren't covered in as much detail as we'd like them to. But yeah, really happy with how it's gone so far. It's been really well received, and hopefully people enjoy listening to it. Some of your audience might have listened, some of them maybe not, but please go and give it a listen. I think there's something for everybody there, and obviously some of them are maybe a bit time dated now, given that just for the nature of performance sport. But I think there's a few episodes there that even if there's parts of it that are dated, the conversations are still good and still a great insight into the sort of journey of a volunteer, or like we did one for the British Diving Champs last year, which was a great conversation with a couple of our divers. So just worth having a wee look, and if you don't like it, that's fine, but hopefully there's something for everyone there.
That's great. There's such a rich history of aquatic sport in Scotland, and yeah, it's great to have those stories tapped into and told.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with obviously the Commonwealth Games coming up next year, we're keen to really keep sort of diving into some of those stories as well, looking back to the Glasgow 2014 and maybe getting some of those athletes on, or some stories round about that. So that's a bit of an aim going forward. But yeah, it's certainly going well so far, and yeah, hopefully people enjoy it.
Super. Yeah, I'm delighted you joined us today, and yeah, we're going to start discussing the Friday's programme. Yeah, so we've just seen a couple of top seeds there across the opening races. So yeah, we're actually kicking off with the 50 back, which is back in for 2025. Wasn't in last year's schedule due to it being mirroring the Olympic programme. And yeah, Charlie, that one has some good strong Scottish contenders. And Ollie Morgan's in there as the top seed as well, looking to reclaim that crown.
It's great to see the 50 back in the programme on the AB side of things. It's always quite an exciting race, I think. It's and it's an open one as well. As you mentioned, there's quite a lot going on. Ollie Morgan is definitely the favourite, isn't he? And certainly probably the favourite in the 100, and got a great chance in the 200 as well. But I can see him taking the win here. But I don't think you can rule out some of those other guys. Is it Johnny Marshall? Is he in the 50? Is he? Yeah. So, we saw him do really well at trials last year, and can he get down to that 50? I think he's got a lot of pace in that as well. From a Scottish perspective, we've obviously got Jamie Ferguson, who did a really great time last year at the British Summer Champs, as it was then, and obviously you've got Scott Gibson as well. You can't really look past. He's not quite been down to his best times over the past year or so, but on paper he's got a 24.8 PB. So if he can get down to that, then he's he's right in there certainly for a medal. If not top place if things go his way. So quite an exciting one, and one that's it's just down to whoever turns up on the day. That's the beauty of the 50, isn't it, Lloyd?
Certainly is. And I'll just give a little nod to Mantas Kaspidas, the Mount Kelly Lithuanian athlete. We won't see him progress through to the final, but he's entered in on the fastest seed time of 24.68 as well. And then we have
which is pretty quick, Lloyd, isn't it? Pretty quick. So hopefully see him go round about that in the heats.
And then we actually have our first paraswimming mixed class race of the night. It's got Maisie Summers-Newton, obviously well-known Paralympic champion, and Iona Winifred, who had a fantastic breakthrough season last year. In that one, Charlie, I just want to ask you about the atmosphere. You're obviously down in London last year, and with that paraswimming, sometimes those races don't have a full 8 lanes, but the atmosphere that's in there that's generated and gives that exposure to them is something that's brilliant, isn't it?
Absolutely, and for me, that was one of the highlights of trials last year, actually. It was seeing how the crowd got behind the para guys when there was maybe a race that only had 1 or 2 people in it. And you can imagine how daunting it must be, especially for someone like Iona Winifred, who I think was in a race on her own last year, if I recall correctly, at 13, 14 years old. So to do that in front of 2,000 people or whatever it is, in an Olympic venue, like Olympic and Paralympic venue from London 2012, that's pretty nerve-wracking. So what was great and what will be great over the coming week or the coming days is seeing that kind of atmosphere, and it really is great. It takes the athletes right through the race, and it gives them their moment in the limelight, which often doesn't happen, or maybe doesn't happen as often. So I think it's great, and it's been a really positive thing seeing the para program as part of the the Aquatics GB Championships again, and I think it's great because you see those heroes that won Paralympic gold. You get a chance to see them race each other, and with the kind of multi-class nature, that's really positive as well. So the para has definitely added a really nice element to the championships.
And on the Olympic pathway side, we've got the 50 fly back in again this year. Got Eva Acaro, Holly Widows and Blythe Kinsman leading the seeds going in there. Obviously young athletes, juniors, they're kind of athletes that are kind of breaking out into the scene, and these kind of meets are a great exposure to kind of build that as they start targeting the international stage more and more often.
Absolutely. And yeah, 50 flies is certainly one of my favourite events, and it's a shame actually not to see Kiana McInnes and Lucy Grieve in there, because I think they would have been right in it from a Scottish point of view. But there is Kira Schlosson, who represents Scotland now from the University of Edinburgh. And she actually had a really great bucks and a great Edinburgh International with PBs in the 50 and 100 fly at bucks. So she's in about there as well. Eva's definitely, I think she's probably the favourite going in. I think you would say that, Lloyd. As top seed, and it's interesting to see her doing a bit more fly, isn't it? We obviously saw that at World Short Course, sort of out of necessity. She had to do the fly leg, but did a fantastic job and helped that sort of club together team of parts get a world silver, which is fantastic. So it'd be great to see what she can do. I know she's doing the 100 fly as well, so she did a really good swim up in Edinburgh, which was which was great to see as well. So I think the 50 on its own is maybe, you know, we won't find out too much because there's not that kind of nomination time, but it'll be a good race and it'll maybe kind of lead into that 100 fly as well and things.
Yeah, just as we kind of come into the halfway stage of the Friday schedule, the men's 100 fly. This was a race last year that, particularly, I think, was from a neutral point of view, really exciting to see kind of that competition for relay spots on that mixed relay team. And it's going to be a really close battle, just looking at kind of like those guys at the back in there.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the hardest ones to predict, isn't it, Lloyd? You obviously mentioned last year where, you know, it was probably a real shock. I think, to be honest about saying that. You know, Jacob Peters had nipped under that sort of nomination time in the heats, and then it just wasn't his race. But we saw Joe Litchfield win that, and it was a tremendous for him. But some really good performances across the board there as well from the likes of Josh Gammon, who seems to be going from strength to strength. So to be honest, you look at that one with Ed Mildred in there as well, and you think, it's certainly a difficult one to predict. And it looks as if Joe's kind of maybe slightly changed his focus to the fly after the success last year, given the kind of the real depth in freestyle and medley as well. So I think that'll be interesting. Be interesting to see can Jacob put the disappointment of last year behind him as well, because you can imagine that's been difficult for him. But he'll be hoping that he can get back on the top spot at the podium, and really perform to the level that he kind of wants as well.
I mean, looking back at Joe last year, he made the comment in his post interview that he'd basically decided to do it after the Edinburgh meet. And I know you've just recently been at the Edinburgh meet yourself, and just a word on what that kind of high quality racing experience for these athletes, kind of that month out from championships, kind of can lead into that decision making.
Well, it's certainly interesting. I think what's so good about Edinburgh is that it's kind of it's so close to trials, but it's far enough away that if things go well or if things go badly, then you can act on it. So clearly that's what Joe did. He thought, oh, actually, I've maybe got a bit of a chance here, an outside chance, but a chance that ended up paying off. Probably an example at this Edinburgh International was, Duncan Scott doing the 200 fly, which is an event we haven't seen him do, I think, since the Commonwealth Games. So, he's maybe just testing himself to see how he do, and now it's on his champs programme. So that's your prime example. But the level of competition is fantastic as well. You obviously get a really good travelling contingent from across Britain. Up in Scotland, we don't always get, we sometimes get some travelling athletes to our short course champs is always popular, but for the Edinburgh International, it's a level higher. So you get the whole British team is there. You had Dan Whiffen and his brother Nathan, lots of Dutch athletes. There was teams from Canada, teams from Israel, teams from across the kind of continent. So really great to see, and it just provides a fantastic level of competition. And just that opportunity to be back in a long course pool and go up against people that you're going to be up against in a month's time. So it's got a really nice dynamic, and it's a great meet. It's a great pool. It's a pool with such history as well. The Royal Commonwealth Pool, hosted 3 Commonwealth Games, two swimming, and diving was the last one in Glasgow. So it's a great venue, and I think people love coming because it's a great city, and just the environment's really good as well. So it certainly kind of gives athletes things to consider so close to trials, and saw that last year, and again we'll see that this year as well.
Just moving back to the Paris swimming multi-classification race, we've got Will Ellard in that, obviously a Paris silver medalist. It's an S14. A couple of the S14s are doubling up with the 2IM on the same night. Will's decided this year just to do the 100 fly, but Harry Stewart and Jude Gunner are in that as well, looking to do both. So it's a bit of a consideration for some athletes if they're doubling up on their programme, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's not the easiest doubling up either, 100 fly and the 200 medley. So you can imagine that is that consideration. Yeah, I'm from a personal point of view looking forward to see what Will Eller can do. He's a really exciting athlete. You know, and the other guys as well. But you saw the success that Will had in Paris, and you know we saw him do so well at trials last year again. So he's certainly one to watch, and yeah, I'll yeah, be keeping my eye out for him.
And yeah, we're just going to pause now to take a look at the second half of the racing programme. Yeah, so we've just seen there the 400 free for the women, the men's 2 IM and the women's 200 vac. And so yeah, Charlie, just starting back in with the women's 400 free. From a para swimming perspective, there's some real depth in that one in the sense of we've got several Paris finalists, Brock Whiston, Faye Rogers, Scarlett and Liza Humphrey, all in there. I know Faye obviously trains up in Aberdeen. A brilliant sort of journey she's been on over the past few years, and that 400 is kind of like a bit of a project swim for her alongside that fly event.
Yeah, Faye's obviously had a fairy tale couple of years, and people probably know about her story, but you know, if you don't, she obviously was already a swimmer. She was a fantastic 200 fly swimmer, and she was injured in a car accident just before traveling up to Aberdeen, where she was going to be a swimmer, you know, be on the performance program there. So it's taken a little bit of time, but she was then classified as an S10. Went to the World Championships in 2023 and won gold in the 100 fly. And she won gold in Paris as well in the 100 fly as well. She medalled in Manchester in the 400 free, and I think you're right that she would admit herself it's probably not her favourite event to do, and it's maybe not the most comfortable for her to do, given that she's more comfortable, you know, with fly, and that's really her kind of specialty. But you see that there's potential there in her category, and with the 400 free, it's you know it's the distance event for para swimmers, isn't it, Lloyd? And it's always interesting seeing how they match up. It'll be interesting from a multi-classification point of view because you know there'll be probably such a range of times as well. But interesting to see, and yeah, be great to see Faye swimming. Again, the first time I will have seen her swim in person since last year, and you know she always delivers. She's you know, fantastic, and she will certainly be hoping to get back on that World Championships team this year as well. And obviously, like you mentioned, Brock Whiston and the Humphrey sisters, who you know, it's always great to see them competing and doing so well as well. So lots of quality there, and yeah, it'll be an interesting event for the neutral as well.
And yeah, we've got Holly Hibbert coming to try and reclaim her crown in the 400 free. She enters back in as the fastest seed on the Olympic pathway race. Obviously, Emily Bloxage and Fleur Lewis will be close competitors in that one as well.
I think that'll be really interesting. Obviously, Amelie was the British champ in the 8 and the 15 last year, and had such a great European junior campaign, and ended up on the World Short Course team towards the end of last year. So I think she's one to watch. You know, can she drop a little bit of time and challenge Holly? And you can never rule Fleur out as well. She's such a great racer. So it'll be one to watch. It's maybe not one that's going to be as quick as some of the other races in terms of the nomination times and things. I think the trio have got a little bit of time to drop in order to kind of hit those times for being on a World Champs team, but you never know, and it will certainly be an interesting kind of head-to-head, and obviously a few kind of outsiders there as well.
Definitely. And yeah, back over to para swimming. It'll be the final para swimming race of the night with the men's 200 IM. Another Paris medalist in there with Rhys Darby, who's probably the standout in terms of the points we're likely to see in that race. But we've also got Bruce D in the SM6 class, who was fourth in Paris, and Cam Verncombe, who was a finalist himself in the SM14 class. So that's another good race.
I think that'll be really interesting as well. And again, you list off lots of quality swimmers. It's not difficult to list off medalists from that Paralympic team, is it, Lloyd? Given that most of them did medal, but it shows the breadth and depth of British para swimming at the minute when you can call upon those names, and I think that'll be a great race. And again, kind of across categories with the SM14s and the SM6 as well. So really interested to see how that one kind of shapes up.
And these final two races of the night are one from a Scottish perspective that you'll probably be keen to get your teeth into a little bit. That men's 200 IM with Duncan Scott obviously leading the line, a multiple Olympic medalist in that event. And then we've got Charlie Hutchison, Evan Jones kind of following up in terms of the seeded rankings going in. That's going to be quite a tasty event to kind of see perhaps that extra competition as you look for the Commonwealth places next year, I guess.
Yeah, well, it could almost end up being a Scottish podium here, given the sort of strength and depth in this sort of event. You mentioned Duncan. I think he's certainly the clear favourite. His personal best is quite a few seconds, but below the rest of the pack. He did a 1:58 at Edinburgh International, which is a really strong and seasoned swim, and you would expect him probably to drop at least a second, if not two, off that for this, which would probably get him the win. But I think behind that, it's certainly interesting. You mentioned Charlie Hutchison, who obviously represents Scotland. Hasn't been at a Commonwealth Games before, just missed out last time, but this is an event that I think he's got potential to get the team in, as well as the 400 medley, and potentially kind of in the 4x2 as well. You've got Matt Ward, who had such a fantastic Commonwealth Youth Games a couple of years ago, medaling in this event, and also a really strong backstroker as well. And you've got Evan Jones, who was a clutch relay swimmer for Team Scotland in Birmingham with fantastic sort of legs that probably surprised him how fast he went back then. So I think it'll be this is going to be really interesting, just for those kind of minor medals, if you will, and certainly one to watch, given that those three mentioned, Charlie, Matt and Evan, they've all got different kind of strengths. You look at Charlie's probably more of a 400 medley swimmer, so it's he's dropping down. You've got Matt, who is really, really strong in that backstroke, which gives him that advantage. And then you've got Evan, who's fantastic flying freestyle swimmer. So that will certainly be interesting to see that side of things.
And yeah, just on Duncan, before we kind of move on, just obviously he's a great advocate for Great Britain, both in the pool and out of it. He's really involved with the All Learn to Swim programme in terms of what happens up in Scotland and trying to bring through that next generation and just get people swimming.
Duncan is a fantastic advocate for Learn to Swim. He's one of our two Learn to Swim ambassadors, alongside Tony Shaw, who's obviously a Paralympic medalist. And yeah, he does so much great work for us, just in terms of promoting what the providers do up in Scotland. And I think for Duncan, and he's spoken about this before, as part of his legacy, if you want to call it that, of being so successful in the international stage, is promoting these things. And up in Scotland, we're really keen to promote Learn to Swim, but also the kind of school swimming angle as well. It's been a big push for us at Scottish Swimming, and Duncan's a big advocate of that as well. And whatever he can do to help make change, he's always keen to do it, and he's very vocal. And that, to be honest, that's fantastic. When I think it was a couple of years ago, when the kind of Save Our Pools stuff started kicking off, he was hugely vocal about that. And just a simple, he sat down on his phone and gave just a really honest kind of monologue, and that really kind of reverberated with people. And it went around the sort of Scottish political community, and people were like, this isn't right. We need to make sure that we keep pools open, that we invest in facilities and things. So that's kind of more about where his focus has shifted from that perspective. But fantastic to have him, and yeah, he's just such a great ambassador alongside Tony as well, who's really grown into that role. Over the past couple of years as well. It's great to have kind of such a great partnership of, a male, Duncan, and then female Tony, who got that para side, and promoting that kind of disability side of Learn to Swim in Scotland as well. So just fantastic that we've got such a great ambassador, or a couple of ambassadors for the sport.
They do such a great job in that. And yeah, then our final race of the night is the women's 200 backstroke. Again, a really close fought race last year. Honey Osrin just pipping Katie Shanahan into it. Katie does enter this one as the fastest seed, just in terms of times posted across the past 12 months. But you've got Holly McGill, who was really close in that one last year as well, chasing them both in, and Freya Colbert, who's always a competitor. So that's going to be another really cracking race to finish the programme.
Yeah, I'm glad this isn't one of the predictor ones, because I think a lot of points will be dropped here, just purely from how open it is. I think Honey obviously winning it last year, and I think people called it a shock. I'm not sure it was a shock, given that she was posting some really quick times going in last year into trials, and was the quickest going in. Katie's obviously, really strong in this event and is the fastest PB, Scottish record holder, and international medalist in this event as well. So she, you certainly can't rule her out. Freya Colbert obviously is, again an Olympian, and didn't swim this one in Paris, but she, is a fantastic athlete, and is, able to kind of turn her head to so many different events. So, certainly can't rule her out. But I think Holly McGill is the exciting one going in, to be honest. Looking at how much time she's dropped, it's fantastic. Has won at Bucks. She won the 200 back, won it at Edinburgh International as well. So, I don't know, to be honest. I think it's going to be a really interesting one, and a fantastic way to kind of end the day of programming as well.
And that kind of confidence of having these early competition in season swims is something that I suppose can really kind of fuel you going into London as well.
I think so, and I think that's really what helped Honey last year, to be honest. She had great times going in, and really that's her focus event, isn't it? The 200 backstroke, whereas, for example, Katie is really strong in the medley, and last year's trial she did the 200 medley, the 400 medley. So it means that if that's your focus and that's your one thing, and you're picking up great times, you're picking up wins, then it can be quite comfortable. And we look at Holly, it's maybe a similar story. She's down for the 100 backstroke as well, but really the 200s are her event, and could the history repeat itself, and could she do well? Quite possibly, I think, but you certainly wouldn't rule any of the girls out, and I certainly wouldn't rule Katie out as well, knowing how high quality an athlete she is, and we've seen her hit some really, really quick times in that before. So I think this is the one I'm most excited for, certainly on this evening, and probably throughout the week. I think that it's one of the most open events, and certainly bodes well for the Commonwealth Games as well next year. So all positive things.
You've sold it there brilliantly, Charlie, to round out the Friday programme, and you alluded to slightly earlier predictions. That's where we're going to hop off to next.
Podcasters predict. Guests across our preview series are participating in a bit of friendly competition, putting forward their predictions for 6 set races across the meet. A correct gold medal prediction scores them 5 points, while 2 points will be scored if their chosen swimmer places second, and 1 point for bronze. Follow Aquatics GB socials to see who takes the Podcasters Predict crown.
Yes, Charlie, you're aware of the point scoring and how this all works, and as we've been doing across each of the shows, we're not asking you to reveal all your selections right now. But can you just give me a little bit of a teaser into 2 or 3 of the champions you've predicted?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've chosen some good ones, Lloyd. They're the closest ones across the board. And the para side as well. It's looking back at last year, it's ones that the points were very, very close. So Yeah, I'll start with the 100 breaststroke. I'm gonna go for my man Archie Goodburn. You've got to go for the Scot in that one. Has the fastest PB going in, so I think if you can get down to that and hopefully drop below 60 for the first time, I think that would get him the win. So fingers crossed, and yeah, I'm going for Archie on that one. Yeah, so from a second one, yeah, I'm gonna take a look at the kind of the women's multi-class under backstroke. This was one that was super close last year on the multi-class points, and I'm going for the swimmer who came second last year to take gold, and that's Poppy Maskell. Again, another that had an absolutely outstanding Paralympics, and yeah, I just fancy her to pip Alice Ty to this one. And lastly, yeah, obviously the one that brings champs to a kind of glorious end. Who's gonna do it? Who's the two men's 200 freestyle? Again, I've got to go for the Scot, and it's Duncan Scott. He's just such a fantastic racer, and can never rule him out. Like no Tom Dean in this one, so it kind of thins that field a little bit. Matt Richards probably goes in as favourite, given that he's been sort of a little bit quicker over the past year or two. But yeah, I'm going for my man Duncan, and I think it'll be a nice way to round up the champs as well.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how those predictions match out in this sort of friendly competition format across the championships. And yeah, I just kind of want to close with a bit of a thank you as much as anything for being with us, and also just to find out a little bit what's coming up with the Aqua Pod, and kind of, you alluded to earlier some of the sort of themes, but have you got any direct episodes that people should be looking out for, or anything that particularly you've got on the horizon?
So with us going into the second year of the podcast, we're looking to kind of up the ante a little bit in terms of the number of episodes. So it will now be at least every fortnight. And it'll be Thursday afternoons usually that it'll go out, so people can keep an eye out for that. We're hoping that with more regular posting, that it's easier for people to remember that it's that the Aqua Pod's there, and to listen along to it. In terms of specific episodes, not really. Like I said, I think there's something for everyone, but for people listening to this, it's probably going to be those sort of more performance ones. Had a good update with Scottish Women's National coach Ian Wright a few months ago, and he gave some good insights into the season and looking more ahead to the Commonwealth Games as well. And ultimately he's the man that'll sort of help put together the selection policy and things like that. So it might be interesting to listen to that and hear what he's got to say. But yeah, just have a listen to a few others, even if you're not a diving fan or whatever. Have a listen to those. I think they're quite good, and the ones around about learn to swim and school swimming as well are really important, and I think people should kind of listen to those. And we're keen to do a little bit more about sort of water safety. And we're hoping to have a Drowning Prevention Week podcast coming out as well in June. So that's a really important one going into the summer months when, unfortunately, drownings quite often happen. So hopefully we'll have that episode, and there should be quite a few kind of key points to go over on that. But yeah, something for everyone. And just want to say a thank you to people who listen. It's me that does it. I put it all together, so I've really enjoyed the process, and seeing it go from just an idea to reality, and now we're a year down the line is pretty cool. So thanks to everyone that listens and has positive feedback. I hope I'm not too much of a drone at times, but I think people enjoy it. So yeah.
Well, I personally look forward to kind of listening into more of the episodes as they come out, and I've enjoyed following the story of the growth of what you've been doing there with the Aqua Pod at Scottish Swimming. So yeah, I just want to say thanks again, Charlie, for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you in London. And yeah, we'll see how those predictions pan out.
Cheers, Lloyd.